So moving on to my next question. So Domitian, obviously, he transitioned his brother's cult to becoming a cult for the entire empire. But do you think Emperor Titus and Emperor Vespasian had the goal of making this Christian cult, this Christian religion, for the entire empire, or was it just specifically aimed at the Jews?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think it was ever intended to replace the imperial cult,
Hmm.
and I don't think Domitian was had that in mind either. I mean, um, I don't really know if they'd thought out with precision, how the religion was going to fit into the future of
Hmm.
the empire. This would be surprising to me if they were that far-reaching. I mean, Constantine did certainly, but that was after
Hmm.
the religion had been in existence for hundreds of years.
Hmm.
Um, I think they had just two purposes. They wanted to tone down, calm down the Messianic rebellions, so they would
Hmm.
put into into in the common vernacular, a messianic individual who had relationship to all of the proof texts that you find in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So the Gospels are kind of an anti-Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls is the literature of a xenophobic warrior cult
Hmm.
that you could easily imagine rebelling against Rome, and it's just a
Hmm.
natural extension of Jewish literature. With
Hmm.
like David, battling Goliath and God helping him, this kind of stuff. So this is the Dead Sea Scrolls show a very natural sort of relationship between the Judaism in the text and the historical moment. Very understandable, that they would be upset about Rome's occupation, and they would want to find a way to rebel. So the Gospels come along and they go, well, they're looking at their scripture and prophecy, and this is propelling them to rebel. This is recorded by Josephus.
Hmm.
Josephus wrote that what most propels the Jews to rebel is their belief in the coming of a Messiah who's going
Exactly.
to a warrior Messiah. Okay, so this is the problem that the Gospels are intended to fix. They're going to take these prophecies and show that, look, this ends up with a character that is pro-Roman, not anti-Roman,
Hmm.
and of course he's predicting that all of the events that occurred in 66 and 73. Jesus is talking about Jerusalem will be encircled, the temple will be razed, the abomination of desolation will occur. So he's envisioning the war that Rome fought against the Jewish rebels, and he's saying that God is envisioning it, and all of the prophecies that we have in our text, they are accepting Rome as the victor in this rebellion that we had.
Hmm.
So this is this is kind of um, uh, the what the political purpose of the Gospels were. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just to tone it down and
Hmm.
produce this character,
Hmm.
that would live in history and just be a reminder to the Jews to not rebel. Um,
Hmm.
but they they weren't really thinking about 500 years out. I don't think. I think
Yeah.
they were. That was just ad hoc. Constantine, um, decided that this would be a great religion to produce the Dark Ages with. Rome made a conscious decision of the
Hmm.
patrician class to basically not develop the intellect of its subjects,
Hmm.
and instead of that, they gave them Jesus and the Christian religion. This is a complicated subject as to why they would choose monotheism. And I think Constantine, if you look at his edicts, he obviously was bringing about the feudal system.
Hmm.
So, in the beginning of the fourth century, Constantine decides to use the religion as the religious aspect of the feudal system, and this then put out the intellectual light of Europe for over 1,000 years. It just
Yeah.
completely decimated the kind of the movement, the
Yeah.
intellectual movement and progress started by the Greeks, continued on by Rome, and in the first century, Rome was at the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. For God's
Yeah.
sakes, did
Yeah.
everything.
Hmm.
And they decided not to go forward. I think that's because the patrician class saw this as being very producing, kind of a more equal society, and they weren't going to have any of that. So they replaced, the intellectual world of the Greeks that Rome had benefited from and had been part of their culture with the
Mhm.
feudal system.